Hey everyone, back tuning into Gazov's second ensemble tutorial. Now, a week or so ago, about 10 days ago, I did an ensemble tutorial explaining how you can read the GFS ensembles, what all the coloured lines are, all the spaghetti that you can see on that chart, because I know a lot of people do struggle with ensembles trying to work out how to interpret them. So I thought I'd get a bit of an educational section together at Gazov to start doing one or two tutorials. Well, on that tutorial, I made a couple of errors. Jonathan got in touch with me, Jonathan Leyland. I'm sure, Jonathan, you're watching the new tutorial. I hope I do it just to get everything right this time. Jonathan got in touch with me to point out that I was getting the terminology wrong, really, of the coloured lines. I was calling the coloured lines, which represent individual members of the GFS ensemble, I was calling them permutations. In fact, the correct word for these individual members of the GFS ensemble is perturbation. Perturbation is the correct word. And because it's such a basic error, I couldn't, in all honesty, leave the first tutorial up giving out false information. So it's not, but not permutation, it's perturbation. Okay, so we've got the terminology right. I'll get on with the tutorial in a moment. But before I do that, just want to talk about the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages at gazfluffy.com. Have a browse through widgets. If there's any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You have to go off and read the article. Thanks so much for doing that. There's also video ads on the page that overlapping the content. And when you watch them, I'll close back up again. Thanks so much for doing that. Right, let's get on with the new ensembles tutorial. So, as I explained in the first tutorial video, there's lots and lots of coloured lines here, and I know a lot of people struggle with how to interpret all of these coloured lines. So, I'm going to start off with the basic lines, and then we'll discuss all the other coloured lines in a moment. So, the first thing we need to know is the thick red line. This is what I talk about in the weather videos when I use the ensembles all the time. The thick red line just here going across the chart, that is the 30-year temperature average. By the way, these are for upper air temperature, but the red line, the thick red line, indicates the 30-year temperature average. So all the temperatures within the ensemble are set against the 30-year temperature average indicated by the red line. The white line is the ensemble means. I don't often talk about the white line when I do the web video, but the white line here, the thick white line, again goes across the chart. Not that easy to make it out early on in the ensemble. We've got tight clustering, but easier to make it out later on in the ensemble. That is indicating the ensemble mean. So what you're doing there is you're getting each individual member of the GFS ensemble together, each perturbation, and you're sort of creating a mean coloured line that represents all of the ensembles, if you put them all together, where the ensemble mean actually is. Now, the green line, the thick green line, I don't talk about this all that often, that is representing the operational run of the GFS. The operational run is the highest resolution, version of the GFS. It's the one that we use for all of the daily weather videos. When I talk about the generic GFS chart, that is the operational run. It's indicated on these ensembles by this thick green line just here. Again, it's not that easy to make it out early on in the ensemble. We've got tight clustering, but it is easier to make it out perhaps a little bit. Hopefully you can see it when we get through to the scattered part of the second half of the ensemble. And then finally, there's a thick blue line. I better get rid of these blue colours and maybe change the colour of the highlighter. There's a thick blue line, which again, not that easy to work out early on in the ensemble, but it's just there, and there, and maybe just there, and again, it's there. The thick blue line is what we call the control member of the GFS ensemble. The control member of the GFS ensembles is a lower resolution version of the operational run. So it's run at a lower resolution to be operational, but it's run at a higher resolution to all the other members of the ensemble. And I think it was actually at one time, before the last upgrade, the control of the GFS would have been sort of the operational run at that time, and then there's an upgrade. They usually upgrade model around once every year, something like that, and we get a new version of the operational run, and the old version of the operational then becomes the control, if you see what I mean. So it's not run at quite the highest level that the operational run is run at, but it's run at a higher level than all other members of the ensemble. And total of all other members of the ensemble, finally, that brings us back to all the other coloured lines, all the other perturbations. They look a bit like spaghetti, don't they? But what each one of these coloured lines is representing is an individual member of the GFS ensemble. So, for instance, these lines down here are all members of the GFS ensemble, and all of these lines up here, there's 20 members of the GFS ensemble, plus the control, and then plus the operational run as well. So each individual coloured line is representing one single member of the GFS ensembles, one single perturbation. So you can see at each one of these coloured lines is represented here on this scale just here, where we've got P0, P1, P2, P3, all the way down to P20, which is just down there. So what you do is that you compare these coloured P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, for instance. You compare the chart there, the scale, you compare that to each individual member, each one of these coloured lines just here. Although, of course, when you've got all of this scatter, and also when you've got all this tight clustering, like we have just there, it's not all that easy to make out each individual member and compare it to for instance, just here, P5, P16, or whatever. But that is what each one of those coloured lines is representing anyway. It's representing an individual member of the ensemble. Now, what we also have to keep in mind is that we've got the rainfall spikes, of course, on the bottom of the chart. So we don't just have temperature, we also have rainfall indicated on these charts. So again, same idea as the temperatures here. Each one of these coloured spikes represents one member of the GFS ensemble, one perturbation. And of course, when you've got a lot of spikes, it's indicating that you've got a particularly wet period coming up. We haven't got any spikes, such as in this zone just here. That's telling you that you're not likely to get any precipitation. Keep in mind the dates are on the bottom of the chart, of course, that we go around 2 weeks with GFS ensembles. We start off, this is when I'm doing the video, on the 21st of June, just here, and we go through into the first week of July. The 7th of July is over here, so the dates are along the bottom of the chart. Now, when you've got tight clustering, of course, this is telling you that you've got good agreement, essentially, within the ensemble. So you've got lots of spikes clustered tight together there, it's telling you that you've got good agreement for precipitation. When you've got these members of the ensemble, in terms of the temperatures, tightly clustered, again, it's telling you that you've got pretty good agreement within the ensemble. And you usually get good agreement early on in the ensemble, and then the further out you go, the more scatter, the more disagreement you get. So sometimes that you can get it early on in the ensemble in certain situations, particularly when perhaps when we've got cold weather looming actually from the east. You'll tend to get a lot of scatter very early on in this sort of zone within the GFS ensemble. But typically, actually, the first sort of 5 days or so tend to be tightly clustered, and then you'll get lots and lots of scatter. Remember that when we're below the red line, of course, the 30-year temperature average, we're going to be seeing below average temperatures, certainly in terms of the upper atmosphere anyway. It doesn't always translate actually down onto the surface, but I won't go into that for this tutorial. But there are situations where even if it's cold aloft after it's warm aloft, it doesn't necessarily translate to what's going down on the surface where we are. But anyway, when the members of the ensemble are below the red line, it's telling you they've got a cooler average period coming up. When members of the ensemble, such as here, are above the red line, it's telling you that you're going into a warmer period, a warmer than average period. Now, of course, what these charts don't tell you, or what the ensemble here doesn't tell you, is the actual weather type that's being delivered by these coloured lines, by these perturbations. So you can go through to other websites and have a look at how each individual member of the ensemble sort of translates to a synoptic scenario. So let's go to the website, theweatheroutlook.com. Fantastic website, and do check the Weather Outlook out if you haven't yet. You can get to it from the links page. So we've got the GFS ensembles here within the chart viewer section of the weatheroutlook.com. What we can do here is we can see, again, very similar to the graph that we was just looking at, we can see all the members of the GFS ensemble, all the perturbations. But what we can also do, as well as that, we can also see how they work out in terms of the synoptic pattern. So, for instance, we're starting here. What the chart we're looking at just here is from perturbation number 1. So on this chart, perturbation number 1 is indicated just there, and it is somewhere within the spaghetti here. But we can actually go through and see how perturbation number 1, how it sort of develops as we go through the ensemble. So we start off, for instance, at just 6 hours ahead. We can go through to 180 hours ahead with perturbation number 1, with ensemble member number 1. And we can see about 180 hours ahead from this ensemble member, excuse me, brings up this very warm southerly wind, with high pressure centred across Germany and low pressure out in the Atlantic. We can go even further ahead than that. We can go out right to the very end, as far as we can go with P number 1, which is 384 hours away, very similar to the operational run, which goes out to 384 hours away. All the other members of the ensemble do that as well. So P number 1 finishes up like this at 384 hours away, which is Tuesday the 7th of July. It finishes up very warm, if not hot, really hot air is coming up from the south with this, and a high pressure system is centred nicely over Germany, pulling up that heat. So let's go back to say 192 hours away, and we'll have a look at another perturbation member. We'll have a look at number 7, shall we? And this is what P number 7 is showing, ensemble member number 7, for 180 hours away, Monday the 29th of June. And we see this one has high pressure around Western Europe, low pressure is out in the Atlantic. How does it develop? Let's have a look at day 10, 240 hours away. High pressure remains quite well in control, although maybe some low pressure perhaps brings some thundery showers from the south. How does it end? How does ensemble member number 7 end? And this is how it ends, very different to P number 1. P number 7 ends with high pressure out in the central part of the Atlantic, and this area of low pressure is coming down from the north, possibly bringing cooler air and rain across the country. And you can go through the whole of the ensemble suites right up to P number 20. This is how P number 20 ends, and P number 20 on this chart is indicated down here by this very vibrant red colour. So it's one of the red members of the spaghetti. And P20 ends on this sort of note, actually quite unsettled. It's got quite a bit of high pressure to the north of Scotland and going up towards Scandinavia. Got low pressure coming underneath it, so that could be bringing quite a bit of wet weather down across parts of England and Wales. It's very useful with this, this section of the weatheroutlook.com. very interesting, very useful when you get outliers. And this is something else that Jonathan picked me up about. The phrase outlier is how we should say, not outlier as I have been using. So corrected again. Thanks very much for that, Jonathan. So when you've got an outlier, sometimes you'll be well above the rest of the spaghetti. We haven't really got any outliers actually on this chart, but sometimes you can have, say you have tight clustering around this sort of zone, most of the spaghetti, and then you'll have one member that goes up here somewhere, or maybe in winter you might have one member that goes down here, whereas most of the members are in that sort of area. So when you've got an outlier, it can be very interesting to go over to the weatheroutlook.com and see exactly how the pattern develops to produce that outlier. And you have to sometimes go through all the members of the ensemble, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, and so on, until you find that outlier. But you will eventually find it. You'll find one member that does something really extraordinary, and those are always the charts for sort of saving and posting on the forums and on the social media outlets to just show people how extreme that particular member of the ensemble has become. So that's the tutorial. I hope I've got it all right. I hope I've done it okay. I realise that it's all quite complicated, quite involved. This will be kept at gazwebbiz.com indefinitely, so you've not been able to follow it all in one go. And I do realise that it is a complicated thing to follow. How to interpret these ensembles. It took me ages and ages to work out how to interpret them when I started looking at all of these charts back in the early 2000s, around 2000, 2001, 2002. It took me a very, very long time to interpret it. Eventually, my good friend from the weatherout.com forum, Retron, Darren, who sort of explained it all to me, but it took me a very long time. And I do realise it is a very complicated issue for people that sort of don't follow the weather forums all that often. So this will be kept on the website indefinitely. You'll be able to come back and sort of follow the tutorial for yourself, maybe get the charts up and sort of follow what I'm saying. And eventually it will all start to make sense. You will start to be able to interpret the ensembles for yourself. So that's it. I hope you found the video interesting. I hope I've done it okay this time, got all the terminology right. It was very important to do this again because they seemed like quite a small matter, but I was getting some of the wording wrong, some of the names that we have to use to interpret these charts. I was getting some of that wrong. And it may seem like a small matter, but of course in a tutorial it's very important that you give out the correct information at all times, or else you're giving people the wrong information. And in good conscience, I couldn't really leave the tutorial on the website knowing that I was giving out some of the wrong terminology. So I hope I've got everything okay. I'm sure I'll be informed if I've got anything wrong this time. Hopefully I haven't. And I hope you found the video interesting and it was okay to be able to follow it. If there's anything else that you would like to see explained in the learning section of gazwebbiz.com, please do let me know via the comment boxes or via email or whatever means that you get in touch with me. Time is always the issue for me on gazwebbiz.com. Get so many updates I have to do now. The website is basically a one-man operation. I do, of course, have Terry and doing some of the month-ahead forecasting, and I do have some help from some of my friends like Stuart Mark and James Ackroyd. So it's not a total one-man band, but I do have to update website myself, and I have to do the daily updates, and there's always lots of things going on, so time is always the issue, which means I won't have a great deal of time to do the educational videos to keep the Learning Centre updated. But hopefully when I do get a bit of time, I will be able to do some more of these tutorials. So if there's anything that you want to see explained, do get in touch with me, and when I get the time, I'll be more than happy to do that. Okay, hopefully everything went okay for this one, and that's all for now. Thanks for watching.